It's Cardboard Time, episode number 95, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, we have reviews of Tower Up, Nunatak, Temple of Ice, and Flip 7. So, welcome everybody. I am back from DragonCon, and what a very hot weekend it was, mostly temperature-wise. There wasn't a huge amount going on. A lot of hanging out and just walking around, seeing things. It was nice to be able to actually go to a convention and just be an attendee. For once, I do try to kind of plan some of those days into the bigger conventions like Origins and Gen Con, where I can just walk around, see things, just experience it from a attendee perspective. And I think that kind of helps keep my perspective focused a little bit. But since I wasn't there on official business, it was nice just to be able to play some games while I was there, hang out, see some things, watch some wrestling, which was very interesting, and just spend some time with some friends I've missed as well. So one of those games, Nunatak, I will talk about today, but the Gang was also a very hot game that weekend, and a lot of plays of that. Like I said, there would be. I figured that was going to be a very good convention game to get out. I also attended Protospiel Rochester last weekend, and it was very fun to play some of the games that were there, some of them very, very close to what I would consider a production state. And it was really great to see an event like that taking off and having some success. It was very well done for a first-time event. I think it was pretty well ran. It was also good to see my friend Cameron and get to hang out with her for quite a while and get to have her experience what this event was all about. It is a run-up to episode 100 already. Last 5 episodes. I do have some great interviews coming up, starting with the next episode. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And let's get to that shelf of aspiration. It is at 127. That is down by 6 from the last time that we talked. 2 games that were incoming, neither counted because I had played them both before. The first one was through crowdfunding, that was Undergrove, and then the second one being Fuego, that was a review copy from Keymaster, so I'm excited to get both of those out to the table. I'm very excited about Fuego. This is a game that I have followed from Dirtle Games on its journey through design and publication and that. So I'm very excited to see that come to fruition and see people actually get to play that and then play the finished product. I did get to play 6 games since we last talked, the first being Rolling Realms Redux. I may be talking about this one. There's not a huge amount to talk about other than it's more Rolling Realms. I do like the improved solo mode. It is very challenging. I never made it through the original mini golf kind of solo scenario kind of thing, but this was very interesting, a very unique take on how to do a solo mode, and I think pretty well done as well. Nunatak, Temple of Ice, I did get to play at DragonCon, as well as Open Season, Batoku, Nocturne, and Forges of Batoku, I'm probably going to talk about. Nocturne, I may not talk about just because of the major color vision issues that I've experienced. I will talk about those on social media, and the fact that it didn't really hit with me all that much. That one probably will be on the sell pile. And Forges of Ravensshire, I would like to talk about as well. I thought that was a very unique game too. So Batoku and Forges of Ravensshire this past weekend really did hit well at the table. So let's get into those reviews, 3 of them today, starting off with Nunatak, Temple of Ice. 2 to 4 players, 30 to 45 minutes, designed by Kane Klinko. The art is by Quanchi Moria and published by Cosmos. In the 3-dimensional construction game Nunatak, Temple of Ice, you build a step pyramid together in a mountain of ice, but this game is not cooperative. so watch your step. A Nunatak, by the way, is a hill or mountain completely surrounded by glacial ice. This is a new fact that I found out. For each pillar stone placed, you receive cards with different values that will affect your score in the end. For every 4 pillars built in a square, a new level of the monument opens up, with the Temple of Ice growing step by step. Who can place their stones most wisely and rise to the icy challenge? So this was a review copy. Thanks to Cosmos for it. Nunatak, I was asked multiple times why have I heard about that before when I was playing that with different people. Maybe it's because I've mentioned it multiple times on different podcasts and videos. I have been hyped about it since I first saw it. I'm very happy to see it in its final stages of production and getting out to people. I have been bugging the team at Cosmos ever since I first saw it for a copy of it. This was one that I was very, very, very excited about. So yeah, so much going on here. And I think point salad is kind of an understatement about what this game is. You know, you have points from the cards that you're going to draft and the set collection elements to each different one. Different set collection elements for each type of card. So one gives you, basically the amount of symbols on the card times the amount of cards that you have. Others give you straight up points. Others give you more for the more that you collect of them, etc. In addition to that, once a square of ice blocks is completed, you score for area control. That's a way of scoring points. Later in the game, you also get points for placing a tile that's supported by your ice block color. So basically, you have these surrounding blocks. If you have a lot of them, you get potentially a massive amount of points that way as well. So it was very interesting to kind of play this and have all of those different conditions that you're trying to balance. And I really do like that. I like that puzzle of where should I place? What do I do? What do I optimize? What do I let go? That kind of thing. So there was a lot to pay attention to. I think it was very well done. How you had to deprive your opponents of some of their conditions as well, and try to balance that. What do I take versus what do I let go? I think you absolutely do need to pay attention to what other players are taking too. I think that is one of the key core aspects of this game. And that was one thing that I got to do that I wasn't stopped in one of the games, was this scoring condition where I was multiplying the amount of cards I had times the amount of symbols I had. I just kept getting those as much as I possibly could, and nobody stopped me. So that is something that you do need to be aware of, is making sure that you keep your opponents in check. I do like those games. I think it's a way of handling player interaction that doesn't outright necessarily seem super mean, but it is kind of, forcing that interaction between players. The 2-player variant was good. I do feel like it plays better at 3 and 4, but the 2-player variant was absolutely fine. It did switch things up a little bit where you do get a block that you can place out. Basically, you get a set of 3 blocks, and you have 2 of your own, and then 1 is shared, basically a shared color that acts as a blocker to what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to get a card out of circulation, that's a good way of doing it. If you're trying to block set collection scoring, or area control scoring rather, that's a way of doing that too. So it's a good option. I think it's well done. I do like that play at 3 and 4 better. It is visually stunning when completed. I really love the look of this, and I think the 3-dimensional elements really do shine in this game. So when you are completed with the puzzle and you do have everything built up, it is really cool to look at. People were coming over while we were playing and looking at it and asking, what it was. So I think that's a really good indication of, the visual aesthetic of this. And it was very easy to teach. Each of the scoring conditions was very straightforward for people who have played a lot of strategy games before. Might be a little bit more difficult when you do have those newer players at the table to have them understand all these different concepts. But I think it's pretty easy. The group that I had to teach it to was getting it pretty well with a mix of people. And there really is a good balance between weight and still having good feelings about the decisions that you're making. This isn't a very hard game. The turn structure is very simple, but you do have some really good decisions that you can make. So you're basically taking a card, placing a block on it, and then scoring. It's really, really, really straightforward. The color vision was okay. I didn't have any issues. If more that like 4 player count actually did happen, we had a 2 and a 3. That might have been some issues. 2 of the colors on the player pieces, and it was actually white and green of all things, especially in lower light, did look a little bit similar to me. Again, especially in that lower light situation. And I think people might want to look at some pictures before picking it up. If it's not an issue to you, that's fine. But do look between those clear and the green. It is a very kind of light green that you're looking. So for my final thoughts, simply put, this is kind of set collection taken to a new level. I think from the 3-dimensional elements to the tension of trying to make sure that your opponent doesn't get that next card that they need, this plays even better than I thought it would when I first saw it. If you do like a wide variety of set collection elements from a game like Nidavellir and have some area control added to it, Nunatak really does provide an outstanding experience. It's absolutely staying on my shelves, and it is actually a late stage candidate for the top 10 of the year as things start to coalesce and I start to kind of think about those things. This is definitely up in my top games of the year. So Nunatak, Temple of Ice, staying on the shelves. Let's also talk about Tower Up. This is from 2 to 4 players, 30 to 45 minutes. Designed by Frank Crichton, Gregor, I'm hoping, Gregor Largi, Sebastian Pochon. The art is by Nadej Caligari, Laurent Escoffier, and Geoffrey Stepanenko. This is published by Monolith Board Games. Congratulations, your architectural firm has been selected to renovate the city's downtown, but you're not the only ones. To pip your opponents at the post, you need to manage your resources and carefully plan your constructions. Be careful not to leave too many opportunities to your competitors. Each turn in Tower Up, you either pick a card and take the corresponding resources, or use your resources to construct a new building, choose an empty spot, pay the cost to adjacent buildings, place a roof, and earn the corresponding points. So thanks to Monolith Board Games for the review copy of this and to Flat River Games for coordinating that. This was a game that I requested due to the fact that it looked like a very easy game to get to the table with a decent decision space. I do like those games to kind of recommend, those lighter weight games that still have some, juicy decisions, just like I talked about with Nunatak. And I do like to get those to the table every once in a while. And I think the table presence on this also did help with that. There's a running theme with today's selections, apparently. So I was unsure of what to expect, as far as how much I was going to like this, but I did think that this had a chance of being good. This was extremely easy to get to the table, and decisions are super quick. I think that this is going to be a great game for newer players. You're either taking those tiles that are on the card or potentially moving up one of your tracks on your player board. And then the other option that you have is, doing that new building action, putting an additional floor on all your adjacent buildings, putting a roof on one, and then scoring that on your player board. The game is over once you played 10 roofs. That's it. So it does go super quick. It is super snappy, and it is very satisfying each time you place one of those pieces and you make that decision to start a new building. It does have a lot of weight to it. So you are consistently doing something that should be helping you advance towards the end of the game. The extra turns and the balance of trying to get a lot of points was probably the most interesting aspect of this game. So the choice of, do I move up far on one track, which had, escalating points the further that you got along on it, versus those extra turns, which was balancing your movement on all of your different tracks. That decision really did seem very interesting, and it was fun to try to balance that. And then towards the end of the game, once it looked like it was going to be very difficult for me to get another extra turn, really trying to maximize the value of one of those tracks. So I thought that was cool. A very well-designed insert. It was a lot of plastic. I will say that is one gripe. I wish that it would have been able to be made from a different material. But it is extremely useful. Basically, taking out this part of the insert and putting it on the table, you had a spot to display your cards, you had a spot to put your draw deck, your discard, and all of the different tiles that you're going to be placing. Everything is right in there. It made the setup a very, very easy thing, and I definitely want to call that out because it was much appreciated from somebody who had to deal with Bitoku this weekend and no insert whatsoever. I was very, very happy to see this. So shout out for that. And the graphic design's okay. It's nothing overwhelmingly pretty. It does work for this game. I will say that the 2-player design is also very cool, where you're just using half of the board. I thought that was a great way of making things smaller without having to take up all that space that you would normally do with just cutting off, one of the areas and still using that full board. So I thought that was a cool decision. I do love the player board design. The 2-layer player boards always, get to me. I do love those. The different construction vehicles as trackers, having that double coating for each piece corresponding to a different color construction vehicle. And it really does have a satisfying overall table presence. You're building these buildings upwards, and then the double layer player boards really do help with that table presence as well. It does look very nice on a table. I do feel like this is ripe for expansion, especially with more objectives. I would love to see some more to add variety to the game. I think that could do very well and just be very cheap. Just a small deck of cards would be fantastic to add a little bit more variety. There are 10 objectives. How they interact with each other is going to keep you going for a while, but I would like to see some more for additional plays. As far as the color vision goes, all the components were double coated, so there were no color vision issues for me during the game that I played. I think the components are very well done in that respect. I will say that one of the objective cards does call out 2 separate gray areas, which could be difficult for somebody that isn't familiar with the issue. They might have some trouble with that. 3 of the different areas in the city for me were pretty close in color. I was able to differentiate between them. So when you needed to distinguish, like, this is an area, that's an area, that was fine. But when it came out to calling out those 2 separate gray areas, that is a little bit difficult. That is mentioned on Board Game Geek. I did look that up, and that is something that you can look at, and it's much easier to understand once you do. So overall, I feel like this game is a great next step or a substitute for getting people into the hobby, either after or in place of Ticket to Ride, respectively. I think the objectives are very simple, very easy to understand. The gameplay flow is super easy to grasp and super easy to teach. And then the table presence gets people to the table. They get to see that, and then they get to see what they've done and built something, and that always feels good. I do highly recommend this for those who are newer gamers or have those people kind of getting into the hobby in their lives, which includes me. I always look for something that's different from your standard Ticket to Ride, even though that's a very good game to use. If I want something that's a little bit different, that's going to provide me with some different challenges that I'm kind of on the same level as the other players in seeing this for the first or second time, I think that this is a very good substitute and kind of a good rotator to throw in there as well. So this is staying on my shelves for sure, and this is one that I definitely recommend people do take a look at. That is Tower Up. And the final game on my list today is Flip 7. This plays from 3 to 99 players in 20 minutes, designed by Eric Olson and published by The Op. Flip over cards one by one without flipping the same number twice. Sounds easy? Think again. This isn't any deck of cards. In Flip 7, there's only one card, one card, 2 2s, 3 3s, etc. Plus a bunch of special cards that can score you extra points, give you a second chance, or freeze you or your opponents in your tracks. Are you the type of player to play it safe and bank points before you bust? Or are you going to risk it all and go for the bonus points by flipping over 7 in a row? Press your luck meets strategy in this addictive card game that's sure to be the greatest card game you've ever played. So we'll see about that claim. We'll talk about that. Thanks to the Op for the review copy of this. I did request this because Push Your Luck is always a mechanic that goes over well in my friend groups. So when I saw this and saw some of the love that it was getting from different people in the community, I definitely wanted to try this one out. This is pretty much a 1 minute teach game, maybe 1.5 after you teach the different special cards. It really provides a good tension that immediately made me think of No Thanks. I think that this is going to be the comparison that normally happens, but maybe without the long-term, planning. It's very short. The rounds are snappy as opposed to No Thanks, where you're going through the whole deck and, planning out what you're doing. This is just very snappy. Do I take this? Do I not take this? So the rounds are super quick. It's super easy to, get through a round, go through the next one. And I do think that there is something to be had for that. Just because you have a bad round, you just move on to the next one. And that does kind of limit that. If a player plays freeze on you, you can't think about it for too long. So those players that are averse to that kind of take that play, I think that is the secret sauce of limiting that anger and that, I don't want to say hatred, but that kind of disappointment and sadness that comes from that. There's no player limitation in this game. I would limit it to 7 maximum from a personal level, just to keep the game running. I think there's a note that's like, if you have more than 32 people, you want 2 decks kind of thing. And it's just like, I'm never playing this with 32 people. I mean, I guess at a convention, whatever. But I would limit it to 7 maximum just to keep that gameplay flowing. It does fit into that box, and I think that this goes back to my comparison to No Thanks. It fits that everyone else's turn is just as entertaining as mine, just for different reasons. So it almost feels satisfying when somebody does hit that 7 in a row, where basically you get the bonus points, play stops immediately. It is kind of satisfying to see somebody hit that, but it is also good to see them bust, because that means that you are, more in the game at that point as well. So I did like that aspect of it too. It is extremely portable, although I do wish they had stuck with this even smaller box format that the promotional copies came in for the main game. The bigger box just kind of takes up extra space. It is the same deck of cards, just with a bigger rule book. And, I really do wish they had stuck with that, just contain the cards and that's it kind of thing. But this is easy enough to port over to like a Magic the Gathering deck box if you do want that more portable form factor. That may be something that I do just to make it a little bit more portable and make sure that it doesn't take up a lot of space. So we'll see if that happens. The box is gorgeous. It's very shiny, very attractive, but it just does take up a little bit more space than what I would like it to. From a color vision perspective, nothing is color dependent. Everything is based on numerical values and text, so that was no problem. So for my final thoughts, while this didn't outright beat No Thanks to take the spot on my portable push your luck light game ladder, if that makes sense, it does sit directly beside it. So I think it's as good of a game as No Thanks. And that's really an outstanding honor. I've had many nights with No Thanks. I'm really kind of happy for this game to come out. One of the things I don't like about No Thanks is the fact that, you worry about losing chips. You have to count out the exact amount for the player count. You have to clean them up after you're done. So this is much easier to pull out the deck, play it, clean up, and then go. And I'm really looking forward to many years of nights with friends at the bar, by the pool, and on the road with this. For me, it's an absolute keeper and probably a game that I will be giving to friends as a present this holiday season. I have already gifted a copy of this, so that is definitely an indication of the way that things are trending. But yeah, I would recommend if you like that lighter push your luck kind of card game, this is one that you definitely want to check out. That is Flip 7. And I think that's going to do it for us today for episode 95. If you want more information about Cardboard Time, you can go to the website at cardboardtime.com. Our Instagram is at cardboard_time, and the Blue Sky is at cardboardtime. The Discord on the Tabletop Express server, you can always go to the website for the invite, or you can email me for an invite. A great community over there as well. If you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, please email cardboardtime@gmail.com. Always looking forward to that and love interacting with people through that platform. I will have an announcement about an event in January that will be coming up very soon, so I'm looking forward to talking about that as soon as I can. So definitely stay tuned for some details for that. But as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.